picture of fire, but the reason being there is lamentation, illusion, and fear, but the fire is invisible. And this invisible fire of lamentation, illusion, and fear, when we are getting burned, what is the solution? We will try to see that from Srimad Bhagavatam today. So this session is dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of Worldwide Hare Krishna Movement. Srila Prabhupada ki. So let's start with the prayers of invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Creation, Chapter 7, The Son of Drona Punished, text number 7. Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Yasyam Vaishruyamanayam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Shokamoha Bhayapaha
Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Yasyam Vaishruyamanayam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Shokamoha Bhayapaha
Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Yasyam Vaishruyamanayam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Shokamoha Bhayapaha
Yasyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktir Utpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Shokamoha Bhayapaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Yasyam Vaishruyamanayam
Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Shokamoha Bhayapaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Yasyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Yashyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Krishne Paramapurushe
Krishne Paramapurushe
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Sokamoha Bhayapaha
Yasyam Vaishruyamānāyam
Shruyamanayam
Krishne
परमपुरुषे
कृष्णे परमपुरुषे
भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः
भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः
शोकमोहभयापः
शोकमोहभयापहा
यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां
यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां
कृष्णे परमपुरुषे
कृष्णे परमपुरुषे
भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः
भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः
शोकमोहभयापहा
शोकमोहभयापहा. Anybody online? यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां कृष्णे परमपुरुषे भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः शोकमोहभयापहा. Jagannath Prabhu, your voice is not audible. Sorry, Mataji, go ahead. यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां कृष्णे परमपुरुषे पद्यते पुंसः शोकमोहभयापहा. यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां कृष्णे परमपुरुषे भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः शोकमोहभयापहा. यस्यां वै श्रूयमाणायां कृष्णे परमपुरुषे भक्तिरुत्पद्यते पुंसः शोकमोहभयापहा. Yashyam, this Vedic literature, Vai, certainly, Shruyamanayam, simply by giving oral reception, Krishna, unto Lord Krishna, Parama, Supreme, Purushe, unto the personality of Godhead, Bhaktihi, feelings of devotional service, Utpadyate, sprout up, Pumsaha, of the living being, Soka, lamentation, Moha, illusion, Bhaya, fearfulness, Apaha, that which extinguishes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Translation with repetition. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion and fearfulness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The purport has 3 paragraphs, so this is the first paragraph. There are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. The importance of hearing is mentioned herein the importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from three material pangs. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. He is after the mirage of illusory things, and he is always afraid of his supposed enemy. These are the primary symptoms of the material disease, and it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and as soon as this is affected, the symptoms of the material disease disappear. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead, and in this statement, the all-perfect personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is clearly confirmed. Second paragraph. The ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. Love is a word which is often used in relation with man and woman. And love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusha, or the Supreme Male Personality. Thus, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is sometimes like that between the male and the female. Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate. The third paragraph, I put it in three parts. Loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. The Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matter heard about him. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. As mentioned before, a living entity develops a sort of complexity by material association, and the illusory engagement of the material body is accepted as an actual fact. Under such false complexity, the living beings under different categories of life become illusioned in different ways. Even in the most developed stage of human life, the same illusion prevails in the form of many isms and divides the loving relation with the Lord, and thereby divides the loving relation between the man and man. By hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed, and real peace in society begins, which politicians aspire for so eagerly in so many political situations. The politicians want a peaceful situation between man and man, and nation, but at the same time, because of too much attachment for material domination, there is illusion and fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring about peace in society. It can only be done by hearing the subject matter described in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. The foolish politicians may go on holding peace and summit conferences for hundreds of years, but they will fail to achieve success until we reach the stage of re-establishing our lost relation with Krishna. The illusion of accepting the body as the self will prevail, and thus fearfulness will also prevail. As for the validity of Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from revealed scriptures. And there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from personal experiences of devotees in various places like Vrindavan, Navadvip and Puri. Even in the Kaumudi dictionary, the synonyms of Krishna are given as the son of Yashoda and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion and fearfulness. These are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing with Veda Vyasa's vision, and this is in series with the previous two verses that we have seen. Verses like this in Srimad Bhagavatam deserve due respect, due attention, due care, and foolish conditioned living entities like us, busy in our material life, also should take notice of these verses. These verses can wake us up from all our illusions, from deep slumber. So that's why these verses are very, very important. We will see this verse, wonderful verse by Srimad Bhagavatam, and beautiful purport. Prabhupada explains every single nuance very, very minutely, very detailed way. I don't know if you paid attention. I was trying to do this differently this time. There are 3 paragraphs in the purport. And if you want to recall this verse later on, there are some highlights which I have given for every purport. For the first paragraph, there are something called the primary symptoms of the material disease. That is something which we will talk about. In the second paragraph, there is something, love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. And in the third paragraph, part 1, loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. And in the second paragraph, by hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, third paragraph, part 2, by hearing the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed, and real peace in society begins, which politicians aspire for so eagerly in so many political situations. The politicians want a peaceful situation between man and nation, but at the same time, because of too much attachment for material domination, there is illusion and fearfulness. And the concluding portion of the third paragraph, conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion and fearfulness. These are just pointers for you to remember. You don't need to remember anything. You can just go back simply sitting here. That's also fine. This verse is primarily, as I said, is meant for my own purification and for the glorification of the Supreme Lord. It's a wonderful verse. Let's pay attention. Yashyam Vaishruyamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktirutpadyate Pumsaha Sokamoha Bhayapaha. Verses like this in Bhagavatam gives us so much of hope, so much of solace, so much of consolation when we are going through so many difficult, rough patches in life. These are verses we should resort to. We should go and take shelter of these verses. What is this verse saying? Yashyam vai shruyamanayam. Yashyam is referring to this Vedic literature. Yashyam vai, certainly. Shruyamanayam. Shruyamanayam, very interestingly, Prabhupada gives the word-to-word meaning as simply giving oral reception. Simply by giving oral reception. Shruyamanayam is actually that which is supposed to be heard. But Prabhupada is saying simply by giving oral reception to what? To this Vedic literature. Vai, certainly. Yashyam vai shruyamanayam Krishne paramapurushe bhaktir utpadyate pumsaha. If somebody gives simple oral reception to this Vedic literature, what happens? Bhaktir utpadyate pumsaha. The devotional service, loving devotional service to the Lord sprouts in the heart. The feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna. Who is Lord Krishna? Paramapurushe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up. Utpadyate. How does it take a lot of time? At once. And what does it do? Soka moha bhayapaha. This statement of Bhagavatam, these are not false statements. These are all truths, realities. Soka moha bhaya apaha. Apaha is extinguishes the fire. There is no fire, but this fire that we are burning, the invisible fire of soka, moha, and bhaya, lamentation, illusion, and fear. It gets extinguished. Powerful verse. Simply by giving oral reception, Shuyamanayam, to this Vedic literature, Yashyam, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, Bhaktir Pumsaha, no, Bhaktir, just Bhakti. Bhakti is translated by Prabhupada in this as feelings of devotional service. So the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, Krishne, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parama Purushe, sprouts up, Utpadyate, and then what happens? At once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Soka moha bhaya apaha. This is the translation. And if you pay attention, close attention to the translation, every single word is important. The first thing which Prabhupada is writing here is simply. Just be simple in life. Don't complicate things. Don't try to do a lot of research and resort to mental speculation or think you are very superior scholar. You don't need Bhagavatam, you don't need Bhagavad Gita, you don't need Srila Prabhupada's purport or translation. Foolish, actually, illusory. We don't need anything else other than these books. But what makes matter complicated, what makes life complicated is because we lack simplicity. Just give be simple in your heart, simply by giving oral reception. If somebody just hears with simple heart, no complications. This is Bhagavatam's words, these are Krishna's words, Prabhupada's wonderful translation. Prabhupada has given these meanings, let me hear this. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. As I said, Prabhupada elaborates this statement of Bhagavatam wonderfully. Very, very wonderful purport. Very logically it is being built. Very nice purport. Let's deep dive and appreciate the nuances which Prabhupada brings in this purport. First thing that Prabhupada is talking about is the importance of hearing in the first paragraph of this verse. What is the importance of hearing? So, as per Prabhupada and as per our Vedic scriptures, we have these 5 Gyanendriyas. Which are the 5 Gyanendriyas? Those who are sleepy either can go or can stand, or they don't need to sit here, whoever they are. What are the 5 Gyanendriyas? Eyes, ears, nose, eyes, ears, nose, or smell, tongue, and skin, touch. These are the 5 Gyanendriyas. But Prabhupada is saying, out of these 5 Gyanendriyas, the ears are the most important. Why? He is giving explanation. There are various senses of which the ear is the most effective. Why ear is the most effective? Reason being, this sense works even when a man is deep asleep. So when a man is asleep, none of the senses work. He may feel some sensation, touch, but that is too late for him to wake up, or it is not even enough. But all other senses, there may be some smell, but it doesn't, make a person awake from his deep slumber. Only thing that works is our ears. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. And then immediately Prabhupada is jumping to an analogy of our real life. We are all sleeping in this material world. It is not just the sleep, the physical sleep that we get it in the night. There is also the sleep that we are having about our real position, about the illusion that we are in. And this illusion can be shattered, can be broken just by the process of hearing. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from 3 material pangs. Now, very interestingly, As I said, this verse needs to be understood very nicely, and as much attention as possible we should give. So when Prabhupada is saying the importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, is it any kind of hearing? No. It has to be the Vedic literatures. Simply by paying oral reception to these Vedic literatures. And which are those Vedic literatures? Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given enough emphasis on hearing these two scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, and he has demonstrated it in his own life, where he used to go to Tota Gopinath and hear regularly from Gadadhar Pandit Srimad Bhagavatam, hundreds of times, only two of the episodes, Dhruva Maharaj's Charitra and Prahlad, hundreds of times. We feel everything we know. Bhagavatam, Eshyam Vaishwamanam Katne Var Sunai. Kya Sunai? What we have heard? Actually, our dull mind is so dull that, even in the time of action, it makes us so dull. I know. Actually, we don't hear anything. No attention goes to this Vedic literature, no this thing, and then we get bewildered in life, and then we come back. What is the solution? Well, the solution is there. You have to hear. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord himself. He is personally hearing this. It's so important. Let's just pause a little and step back. Why we should hear? One of the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it is mentioned, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kavunai Shravanadi Suddha Chitte Karaya Udaya. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem. Krishna Prem is in the full manifested thing, is there inside our heart. It's dormant in every one of our hearts. It's a fact. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kavunai. You don't need to, I have to do this thing, jugglery, and then probably I'll develop love for God. No, love for God is a natural thing, dormant in every living entity. It is in the sleeping state. Shravanadi Suddha Chitte. When we hear, when we give simple oral reception with our ears, Suddha Chitte, Chitta becomes Suddha, Karaya Udaya, it manifests. Where else? In the beginning of Bhagavatam, when the sages of Naimisharanya are asking questions, one of the questions, the last question that they asked, where has Dharma taken shelter now? Now that Krishna has gone back, along with him Dharma and Jnana has gone back, where has Dharma taken shelter? Where should we go? And the answer which Sutta Goswami gives is, Krishne Swadhama Upagate Dharma Jnana Dhibhi Saha Kalo Nashta Drisham Esha Puranarko Adhunoditaha. Krishne Swadhama Upagate. Okay, Krishna has gone back, and along with him Dharma and Jnana also has gone back. Krishne Swadhama Upagate Dharma Jnana Dhibhi Saha Kalo Nashta Drisham Esha. Oh, foolish, unfortunate people of Kali Yuga, Kalau Nashta Drisham, who have lost their vision, deep illusion, very deep illusion, and we will see how Prabhupada is giving examples of, what is this illusion and what illusion leads to, and how this illusion can be shattered. Kalau Nashta Drisham Esa Puranarko Adhunoditaha. Puranarko Adhunodita, like the sun rises, the brilliant sun rises in the sky, all darkness is immediately dissipated. Similarly, this Puranarko, this Purana, this Bhagavad Purana, which is bright, effulgent like the sun, has arisen, and it can dissipate all the illusion, all the darkness of illusion. In the importance of ear I mentioned, see, the only thing which I'm trying to speak from this verse is the importance of hearing from different angles, which Prabhupada is bringing in the purports. The first thing Prabhupada is saying, the importance of Jnanendriya called ear. Even if when we are asleep, it works. And he gives the immediate analogy that in material world, we are all conditioned, we are all illusioned, we are all in the sleeping state. Still this ear will work. This hearing will work, provided we are hearing from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Prabhupada mentions that the importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely getting free from the material pangs. This material, namely getting free from 3 material pangs. Actually, we are subjected to these 3 material pangs, or we are subjected to this bhavaroga, or this material disease, yet we don't know that we are having this disease. How can you say someone that you are having a disease, but you don't know about it? This is only possible if the foolish person who is suffering from that disease doesn't know the symptoms of those disease. So what are the symptoms of those disease? Prabhupada explains in the purport. What are the symptoms of this material disease? These are the primary symptoms of the material disease, Prabhupada writes. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. Why everybody is lamenting every moment? What is the problem? Why I'm not lamenting. The reason being, we are chasing after the mirage of illusory things. Mirage of illusory things. We don't really know. Nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. We don't know that our real benefit, our real swartha, swa-artha, the real valuable thing for us lies in Vishnu. We are running after so many things, just running. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment because he is after the mirage of illusory things, and he is always afraid of his supposed enemy. He is always afraid, koi aake mere le lega, somebody will overtake me, somebody will go, my position will go down. There is a fear of losing out things, and there is illusion because we are searching after some things which are mirage, which can never give us happiness. So when somebody is suffering from this material disease and he doesn't know even the symptoms, Bhagavatam is saying, see your own life. You don't need to lament. You don't need to. That's why our Bhagavad Gita says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, Na Sochati Na Kangshati, Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu, Mad Bhakti Lavate Param. Once one comes to the stage of Brahma Bhuta, he becomes Prasannatma, completely satisfied. Na Sochati, Na Kangshati. No lamentation, no hankering. But as long as we are Pati Bhuta or Patni Bhuta or some dollar Bhuta, then we will always be Sochati and always be Kangshati. We will always be lamenting, we will always be. Bhuta is nothing but becoming ghost in this material world, running after all these things and continuing this process of birth and death. Before we proceed further, I want to tell you the story of these two birds. Very, very interesting illustrative story. Pay attention to this story. The importance of the impact of hearing. Why we should pay attention, why we should hear. Like in the room, if it is closed and if it is cleaned, we ask our MMD devotee to clean the temple room every day, which happens, which sometimes doesn't happen. But if it doesn't happen, for 1 day, for 2 days, for 3 days, naturally you can see that the room is dirty. Even if the room is closed, locked, sealed from all angles, from all corners, dust comes in. Similarly, our mind is also prone to so many anarthas. That is what the previous verse says. Anartha upasamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhokshaje lokasya jananto vidvams chakre satvata samhita. Many anarthas are there. And mind is prone to have these anarthas. Heavy dust. So as long as we are spiritually blind and we are not able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why in the previous verse, Vedavyas could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite male, because he was free from all the contaminations. He was able to see. But we are spiritually blind, we are not able to see Krishna, and we are present in a kind of illusion, then these anarthas naturally come in our heart. So when these anarthas are coming, what is the way out? Simple and submissive hearing. When we hear simply and submissively, then this mind or heart becomes clean, completely cleansed, clear. And the Supreme Lord who is seated in our heart, he appears immediately to wipe out all anxieties, irrespective of whether it is about past, present, or the future. So this story, it's a very interesting story. Pay attention. There was a sage who was passing by in a forest, and he found that there were 2 baby parrots. They didn't have their mother. So the sage, out of his compassion, took these 2 birds, and on his way, when he was going, he found 2 families. He gave 1 bird to each of these families. So one of the families that he gave this bird to was very, very pious. He was very hospitable. He was very kind. And the other house that he gave this bird to was a dacoit. So what happened was, the first house where the sage gave this parrot to, this house was always filled with transcendental vibration of, chanting the names of the Lord, of singing the glories of the Lord, and the parrot heard everything. So he picked up all these good traits from whatever he was hearing. And when the sage visited this family after a few months, even though the master was not present, the parrot welcomed the sage in a very hospitable manner, like we have seen in our Utah temple visit. Hare Krishna Prabhu. He welcomed the sage. Whereas the other parrot, which was brought up by that dacoit, all day the parrot heard only bad things. So when the sage came to visit, why did you come here? You foolish person, you rascal, you get out of this place. Something like that he said. Very rude manner. In spite of being born to the same parents, they had the same mother, same father, the birds picked up different traits depending upon what they heard. And our position is not very different. Our position is very, very similar to the parrot in the above story. If we hear about Krishna and his glories, his devotees, his loving kindness to them, and so on and so forth, our heart also gets purified. Whereas if we use this valuable gift of hearing in listening to nonsensical things, then not only our consciousness gets affected, but also we become a source of trouble for everybody in this society. That is why this Prabhupada is saying that there are, out of all these senses, most important is ear. The ear is the most effective. In Bhagavad Gita 7.1, in the famous verse where Krishna says, Tat Shrunu, in the purport Prabhupada writes, to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotees who constantly engages in hearing of him. This is the fact. The Lord is there in the heart. How does this process of hearing acts? How does it work? It works because the Lord who is present in the heart, when we hear about him, since this message is not different from him, it cleanses the impurities in our heart. So the Lord who is there in the heart, he removes this unwanted things, this anarthas in the heart. That is why it is so important to pay attention to this hearing about this Vedic literatures. But I don't know, I was seeing what title Bhagavatattva Prabhu had given. What is the title you had given? Yeah, so when I was seeing this, practically where does this lift go? Lift is lamentation, illusion and fearfulness, right? From life, you add just E, it becomes life. And where does this practically, okay, I'm hearing this. Now, how this lamentation, illusion and fear is going from my heart? What is it happening that, this lamentation, illusion and fear is going from our heart? Very interesting. Prabhupada talks about it in the purport, but if you pay attention, how does this, where does this lamentation, illusion, fear disappear? Very important, very interesting to pay attention to this. First thing that we need to remember is we have to go from this material world. We have to leave. There is nobody in this world who is permanent. Absolutely nobody. It doesn't matter who we are, how big the position I am having. We have to go. And this is something which we have to remember. But before going, we should try to make our life perfect. As I was telling, the best gift that the Lord has given us is this valuable human body, right? Sometimes, when right now, let's say we are in the US and we've been hearing that, some devotees who are struggling with their health, they want to go to India and they want to get some treatment. You want to just go, finish the business and come back, right? You don't want to stay there because you have services, the temple is here, the deities are here, you've got so many assigned services. You just want to go and finish the business and come. Similarly, just finish this business. Something which is assigned, this is how it is. This material world is also like that. It is we have to leave this place. This is not a place where we can settle down. But because what happens is, when we don't know this, then we think that we are going to live here permanently, and that is the beginning of the illusion. Beginning of the illusion is we don't know that we have to leave this place. So when that illusion is there, then it leads to lamentation. Why lamentation is coming? Or maybe before lamentation, it leads to fear. Fear of what? Oh, I'm going to die. What will happen to me? If I'm dying, then who will take care of my family members and relatives? It's all because first of all, we don't accept that we can't live here permanently. That is the biggest illusion. So then when death comes, there is a fear of death. So if we remember that we are not here permanently, and that is definite, and if we feel that we are permanently here, then that is illusion. And this illusion, oh, I may die, then there is a fear. But if somebody understands that anyway I'm going to die, this place is just a temporary place, I'm here, there is no fear. What is there to fear? If somebody is prepared for this, that the death can come any moment or very next moment, as our scriptures are telling, Prabhupada is telling, I'm not afraid of it. There is no question of negotiation with Yamaraj at that time. Yamaraj comes, okay. Now, Yamaraj doesn't give us notice, I'm coming day after tomorrow, 9 o'clock, be ready, finish your rounds, finish your prasadam, finish whatever you want to do, all the responsibilities, paperwork, everything you should finish, all our obligations, and then we will go together. It's a nice journey. No. It's not like, it's just immediately. It can just come anytime. And we cannot tell him at that time, wait, I'm coming from, I'm coming from attending one call, I'm doing this thing, and then I'll take some time, please wait. There's no question of waiting. So this illusion, this lamentation, the illusion and the fear in life can completely vanish if we take to this process of devotional service. The E probably is false ego or ego, which combines this. This is the life that we are living, a life which is filled with lamentation, illusion, fear and false ego, which doesn't allow us to surrender to the Supreme Lord, which doesn't allow us to understand our real position, which doesn't allow us to engage in devotional service in a loving manner. We may engage in loving devotional service, but there is no love inside. So one has to engage in devotional service with love. And the process of engaging in devotional service with love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead starts with the process of hearing. When somebody hears about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the feelings of loving devotional service in the heart is sprouted. And then when that feeling is sprouted, it removes all this life, whatever this life I'm saying. Very interestingly, there is a statement which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in one of the purports of Bhagavad Gita. Please forget about these things and come to devotional service, and it will only sprout if you hear properly. He says, what is the connection? Where is it mentioned? Which two verses? I'm going to talk about two verses. I just spilled out two verses about the importance of hearing, one from Bhagavad Gita and one from Srimad Bhagavatam. Any verse that you know from Bhagavad Gita which talks about the importance of hearing? That's true, no? Apart from that, Tadvidhi, where is hearing? You can use your Google search, whatever you want to, and tell me where it is mentioned about the importance of hearing in Bhagavad Gita. Hearing. That is about associating with devotees. Use the gadgets. What is that translation? It's all complicated. Sacrifice the hearing process. Who's going to sacrifice? Panduranga, Badri, and Balram Prabhu is still on, so and Vishnu is still trying. Bhagavad Prabhu has given up. Mataji is not trying even. Okay, very interestingly pay attention. Bhagavad Gita, where it is mentioned the power of hearing. It's a very wonderful verse. Which opulence? Yeah, no. The verse is from 13th chapter, 26th verse. Anyetva evam ajanantah shutva nebhya upasate tepi chati taranti eva mrityum shruti parayanaha. Anyetva evam ajanantah shutva nebhya upasate tepi chati taranti eva mrityum shruti parayana. See the power of hearing from Bhagavad Gita, where it is mentioned. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, you may not know even what spirituality is, who Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about Him from others. Anneto evam ajananta, they are ignorant. Shrutva nebhya upasate, they start worshipping the Supreme Lord by hearing about Him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Tepi chati taranti eva mrityum shruti parayanaha. Shruti parayana, they are, because they are attached to hearing. This is such a powerful thing. Atitaranti eva mrityum. Even mrityu, this path of death, this path of, accepting the cycle of birth and death, or, this going through the cycle of birth and death, they can transcend. That's the power of hearing. Very interesting purport actually. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society, because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. We are all spiritually blind. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. The power of hearing, actually we don't hear. Okay, just something struck to my mind. Do you remember when grandmother, Jejmama, when he used to remove this somebody's snake bite, what she used to do? Okay, and have you seen someone who, when she was actually doing that? When somebody is brought, you know? I remember, I don't know, you can, I think you were very small to remember everything, but one thing which I have remembered, which I remember very distinctly, when somebody is brought in that disease state, when the snake bite has happened. By the way, the snake bite, can be removed by chanting of the mantras. So my grandmother, she used to do, she knew this mantras, and people will bring some people, they'll come and the chanting of the mantras will happen. What happens is during that time, when the person, when the snake, the poison is spreading in the body, one of the things that the person asks for is to drink some water. Give me some water. And usually what they do, they will not give water to drink. They will rather pour water on his head. Cold water is poured like repeatedly it is poured. We have a well right there in the courtyard. They'll remove water. That person is sitting there, he's asking for water, but water is not given. They pour water on him. Keep pouring water, and whatever the mantra she chants and some writing on the floor, and the person recovers. Why? Actually, a diseased man is still looking for sense gratification. He's looking for that water more, but doesn't know that in the poison state, this water only aggravates the poison. It makes it more difficult. But we keep sprinkling the spiritual subject matter like this water profusely, lot of quantity. When it is profusely put in the water on the body of the person, he comes back to his senses. Like that, it is actually for the common man. As for the common man, if he is good soul, and there is a chance for development, there is a chance for advancement by hearing. Unfortunately, people don't even hear. That is the most important thing, and that is the most negligent thing. Everything else we want to do in life. And there is also very selective hearing. If it comes to some offer which is going on in some this thing, sale is happening, or some we'll go out for a nice picnic, all attention goes. Kab hai, kahan pe hai, kitna hai, everything we want to know. When it comes to the scriptures, Fat says, कुछ हुआ? ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. चलो 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 हो गया. What we will do? The water has to be poured. It has to go sufficiently. Like the diseased man, he is bathed. Doesn't matter whether it is the mid of the night, dead of the night, whatever it is, the water profusely it has to be poured. Then the person comes. There is a chance that he may revive. Otherwise, in this poisoned state, no chance. But here it is mentioned, Tepi cha atitaranti eva mrityum shruti parayana. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Let's take one verse from Bhagavatam. There are countless verses. Bhagavatam, I will not ask you, give me a reference where it is mentioned the power of hearing. But I just want to take one of the probably the beginning verses where it is mentioned the importance of hearing from the first canto, first chapter, where the sages were asking questions. In between asking these questions, they talk about some cardinal principles, very, very important principles. One of them was chanting the names of the Lord. The verse is, Apannah samshritim ghoram yadnama bibheti granam tato sadya vimuccheta yad bibheti swayam bhayam. Apannah samshritim ghoram. This complicated mess of birth and death, we are stuck here. We don't realize our position. How much of obliviousness, how much of callousness, how much of deep state of ignorance and delusion. We don't realize that. ठीक है यार, life में चल रहा है ना सब कुछ. चलने दो, and we don't realize life comes to an end. Apannah samshritim ghoram. This is a very scary, very, very fearful state of existence, and we are stuck in that. But just by chanting the names of the Lord, even the fear personified gets fearful of this, chanting the names of the Lord. In sequence to that, the next verse, they mention about another principle, the principle of hearing. What is that principle? Koba bhagavatastasya punya shlokedya karmanaha suddhi kamona shrunyad yasah kali malapaham. Very powerful verse. Who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel, who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? Suddhi kamo na shrunyad yashah kali malapaham. Kali, another bigger problem for us is we are in the Kali Yuga. Had it been Satya Yuga, had it been Treta Yuga, had it been Dwapara Yuga, there are more chances of naturally coming to a mode of goodness, more chances. But unfortunately, we are stuck in Kali Yuga. And the symptoms or the characteristic of Kali Yuga, which is just given just before this verse, Prayena alpayusa sabhya kalau asmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayoho manda bhagya hi upadrata. Short lifespan. Prayena alpayusa sabhya kalau asmin yuge jana manda, lazy like anything, oh my God. Heights of laziness only for spiritual things. Every time postpone. आज नहीं कल. एक दिन आ गया कार्तिक में तो दूसरा दिन बंक, तीसरा दिन चौथा दिन देखेंगे, सो के उठ जाते हैं. Manda sumanda matayo, dull headed. What is right, what is wrong, no idea. Manda bhagya, and unfortunate. And then on top of that, disturbed in mind, body, senses, family, everywhere there is problem. Very interestingly, Prabhupada, this verse is telling who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel. We can experience the vices of quarrel everywhere. It is all pervading in our life, in our family, inside us, in the society, in the country, everywhere it is there. I don't know, I am untouched by the effects of Kali. You must be joking. Is it some kind of hallucination? Everybody is experiencing that. Then how do you come out of it? Very interestingly, in the translation, in the word to word of this verse, Prabhupada has given the word to word meaning of the Kali, the word Kali Malapaham, as the age of quarrel. Kali is translated as, not as Kali Yuga. It is translated as, the word to word synonyms, Prabhupada is writing age of quarrel. And Prabhupada is saying why it is translated as age of quarrel. Because the nature of Kali Yuga, I mean, it is so imbued, so saturated with these vices, these vicious habits, that just slightest misunderstanding, little, not even very big this thing, just a slightest misunderstanding, it leads to a great fight. So in this purport, very hope-giving things Prabhupada has written how we can come out of these effects of Kali Yuga. There are 3 things which Prabhupada mentions, if you see from the purport. First thing, he's telling that persons who are capable of transcending the evil effects of Kali Yuga, he says, those who are engaged in the pure devotional service of the Lord. First, if somebody is fortunate and he's engaged in pure devotional service of the Lord, not motivated by some ulterior motives, करने से कुछ मिल जाएगा, भगवान दे देंगे, कार्तिक का व्रत कर लिया, मुझे मिलना चाहिए, or I should get some name and fame, I have done this, I'm in the limelight, I did this, इतने सारे बुक्स मैंने डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर दिया, इतना अच्छा गाता हूँ मैं, क्या बोलता हूँ मैं, लोग आके बोलते हैं प्रभु आपने क्या बोला, then these are all ulterior motives. Engaged in the pure devotional service of the Lord, just for the glorification of the Lord, just directly engaged in devotional. Of course, we can't directly engage in pure devotional service of the Lord unless we are authorized by the Guru. Do this service, assigned services. This is what is assigned for you, do that assigned services. When we are engaging in the pure devotional service of the Lord, who are without any desire for self-aggrandizement and who are freed from the effects of fruitive actions and dry philosophical speculations, jnana and karma, who are free from that, who are without any desire for self-aggrandizement. Self-aggrandizement means when again somehow accumulate some things, because I am doing bhakti, mera sukh sampatti ghar aave, kashta mitte tanka, om jai jagadishar. Not any of those things. Free from all those self-aggrandizement. Then he can transcend these effects of Kali. And in the end, in that same purport, it's a beautiful purport, very nice purport. Prabhupada says that here is the hint to get over the hurdle. If we want actual peace, the word peace is also mentioned in the third paragraph of the verse that we are discussing today. If we want actual peace, we must open the road to understanding of the Supreme Lord Krishna and glorify him for his virtuous activities as they are depicted in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. No other reason. We should, every single opportunity, we should come together and glorify the Supreme Lord. He is meant to be glorified. That is why he is Uttama Shloka. Shlokedya, this verse that we are talking today, it says Shlokedya, Shloka Idya, because he is the one who has to be worshipped with choicest words. When we do that, naturally all this envy, all this ill feelings that we have towards others, all this kalmashas, malas, everything disappears from the heart. So we spoke about one verse from Bhagavad Gita, one verse from Bhagavatam. Now I want to conclude with 2 quotes of Srila Prabhupada from the Power of Hearing, maybe 3 quotes. This is from Bhagavatam 10.1.4. We know this verse. Nivritta tarshe rupagiyamana, which is there in Krishna book in the beginning also. Nivritta tarshe rupagiyamana. Beautiful verse. From that purport, Prabhupada is writing, Parikshit Maharaj says, descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. It is the right medicine. I may not like it, like that I was giving the example of a person who's bitten by the snake. The right medicine is you have to pour some water, not give him to drink more water. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Except a butcher who doesn't know what is the real benefit of his own self will not pay attention to this wonderful descriptions. Then in 2.8.4, Prabhupada says, Maharaj Parikshit personally recommends that one hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya, always by one's own effort and with serious devotion also. That will help one to see the Lord Krishna manifested in one's heart within no time. Pay attention. That will help one to see Lord Krishna manifested in one's heart within no time. Lord is present right here in our heart. He is there as Paramatma. I am not cognizant of it. I'm ignorant of it. But he will manifest if we pay submissive oral reception, simple submissive oral reception, and trying to understand with one's own effort and serious devotion. Then the Lord will manifest. Towards the end, Prabhupada actually says that this is the test. The purport ends with a statement by Prabhupada where he is saying that these are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now you can say, I am attending no Bhagavatam, har roz to attend kar raha hu. But there is a test. And what is that test? The test is that, the conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. And thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion and fearfulness. If one is morose, if one is still illusioned, if one is still fearful, if one is again, not able to deal with this miseries of material life, that means he has not heard properly. That means he is still disturbed inside his mind. That means he is still envious. Why? Where is the proof for this? Proof. You want proof? Okay, take the example of Daksha Prajapati. When he started chastising Lord Shiva for no fault of his, Shiva was just seated there. Nothing he was doing. He is just seated. Daksha Prajapati, out of his own false ego and illusion and not having heard properly, started saying, don't think that I am making any mistake here. I am just telling you how this Lord Shiva is so impudent. He is putting ash on his body. He is just a filthy person with snakes all around. And by the words of Brahma, I have given my daughter's hand to him, but he is most undeserving. Went on and on and on and on. Means no sufficient hearing. There is a lot of envy in the heart. This is the symptom. If somebody hears, this is the test. When we shall feel pleasure by hearing about Krishna or talking about Krishna, we must know that we are making progress on the path of perfection. सुनने के लिए बोलो इधर लोगों को, क्या प्रभु फिर बुला लिया सुनाने के लिए. कोई खाना वाना दे दो, हम जाएंगे खा पी के आ जाएंगे. क्या करना है? Bonfire, हाँ, very good. Apple picking, very nice. We will run. When it comes to sit down for 5 minutes to hear, no. That you can do, bro. When we shall feel pleasure by hearing about Krishna or talking about Krishna. Talking about Krishna also one should feel. You ask about Krishna consciousness, anything, anywhere. Questions, mere ko, don't ask me, bro. Bhagavatam Prabhu got initiated last year. Why don't you answer this? Okay, mere se to chala gaya. Or somebody else was initiated before me, okay, go. I should feel pleasure. Krishna is the source of Satchidananda. He is. I must glorify. That is what Narada Muni told Vedavyas. Glorify. Glorify the Supreme Lord. All the things will go away. When we shall feel pleasure by hearing about Krishna or talking about Krishna, we must know that we are making progress on the path of perfection. And at that time, any kind of this material suffering will not be felt. This is the practical effect of executing devotional service. So this is the power of hearing, and wonderful verse. You can see afterwards and meditate and introspect on this verse. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, how to develop better quality of hearing?
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. How to develop better quality of hearing?
Yeah, I don't see somebody, if somebody asks how to become sincere, the only way you can become sincere is by becoming sincere, right? There is no this thing. How to develop better quality of hearing? By, as Prabhupada says, by the process of submissive oral reception. Do as a matter of duty to start with. Like, there are many things in life which we do as duty conscious. My children is not well, I will take him to some hospital or something. This is my duty. I don't, there is no negotiation, there is no question there. I must do that. Like that, there should be a state where we should come where I must hear. Irrespective of whatever maybe, the priorities, the world's this thing. I don't forget eating any day. I eat. At least I should come to the state of, that duty consciousness that, yeah, I must hear every day because this is good for me. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavatam is telling, Prabhupada is telling, every scripture, everywhere they're telling, I must pay oral reception with attention. When I do that, when I start doing that regularly, automatically the taste comes. It will come. It's bound to happen. This is filled with nectar. How is it that you're touching nectar and you're not getting? It's because we are inattentive. We're not doing it regularly. Once in a week if we come, that also if we miss, and then we have got other things to do in our life. It's all complication in the mind. That complication in the mind, if it is not going, nobody can help. No other question, will stop here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.